people to join. But
I appreciate the cover of the tech difficulty descriptor, because it really was just a me problem. It was just a straight up me problem.
we've all been
Um,
there.
how are you doing, Jessica? Were you just hanging out with one Katie Couric by any chance?
It was. Isn't that funny? Yeah, I'm
Were you
okay.
in person?
No, 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 no. It was this. It was just
Okay.
like a Substack live. She asked me last minute to come on, and like, who could say no to Katie Couric?
Who could? Who could?
Who
Did you
could?
talk about abortion? Did you talk about Tish James? Did you
We
get
talked.
any
Yeah,
goss?
no goss, no goss.
Yeah.
No, it was like, I think like a lot of people, she just hasn't been able to keep up because she's trying to pay attention to everything,
Yeah.
and there's so much going on. And so I was sort of giving her the rundown of, this week's latest nightmares.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what was I going to say? Why don't we start by just doing a little like go around intro? Hello to everyone who is joining. Um, I said this to Jax. This is like very casual, very informal. It's a great crew of people. It's paid subscribers only for the actual live, so it like stays nice and small. Questions are easy, no gross trolling. And then we will send this out to the full list later. Um, I'm just so glad that this worked out and that you both were able to join,
Me
because I
too.
love your work so much. Do you want to both introduce yourselves and tell folks a little bit about you and about Shout Your Abortion, which, by the way, I have to say, 10 years old now.
I
Was it
know. We're
this
10.
month?
Double digits. Yeah, it was
Double
September.
digits.
I know. I know. We're a
That,
full-grown child now. Um,
congratulations. That's an amazing thing.
Thank you. It is an amazing thing. It feels pretty cool. So, thank you, Jessica, so much for having us and dealing with like tech supporting me through being unable to log into the Substack app because I was using the wrong login. Um, my name's Amelia Bono. I use she, her. I am the co-founder and executive director of Shout Your Abortion. SYA started in 2015 when my own abortion story went viral alongside this hashtag Shout Your Abortion, which unleashed a torrent of hundreds of thousands of abortion stories all over the platforms and the IRL, and it's just kind of never stopped. And for the first couple of years, we were really focused on just normalizing abortion in art and media and culture, and creating places for people to talk about their experiences, which, Jessica, as someone who's been in the game for a very long time and has been talking about your abortion for a long time, it's kind of a trip to think back to 10 years ago when like it still really felt like the approach coming from our side
Yeah,
was like to kind of pretend it wasn't happening, and to pretend that abortion was primarily tragic and at the very least like super extenuating circumstances, and that like it was a thing that we theoretically needed, you know?
right.
And we've come a really long way since then culturally. And I think that that's been one of the cool things about this 10-year birthday that we just had, was like reflecting on that piece.
Mm.
So just to finish up my intro, SYA now, as we hope that some of you know, is working to normalize paths to abortion access regardless of legality, and to provide inroads for people who give a fuck all over the country to participating in and supporting abortion access in your community. So we run a national organizing program that is helmed by the illustrious Jex Blackmore, who I'll hand it over to Jex to say hi.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Jex Blackmore. I'm based in Detroit, and I'm the organizing director, as Amelia said. I've also been an activist in this space for over a decade. I'm an abortion doula and have helped start a mutual aid fund that provides abortion access in my state. So it's an area that I'm thinking about all the time, and I'm so just like over the moon that my job is thinking about the ways that we get people engaged and involved in the movement. And I think that there is so many access points for people to, regardless of their abilities, interests, ages, like across the spectrum. And it's really just about us getting information out to people and supporting them and figuring out what works for them. So that's really where my job comes in, is supporting community members and individuals and figuring out how to get involved.
I love it. I was hoping that you both could talk a little bit more about that legality piece and thinking beyond legality. I remember when I forget if it was when Roe was overturned or when the Dobbs announcement when it was leaked, but I remember writing this column and I quoted you all at the end of, fuck SCOTUS, we're doing it anyway, and nothing sort of captured my sentiment and my feeling in that moment better than that. And there's been, the incredibly horrific, disappointing ruling. There's been so many more horrific, disappointing rulings. Can you talk a little bit about the limitations of a movement that is focused sort of like solely around legality and how you all are approaching the fight?
Yeah, I want to have Jex like open up this one because we were just having a really cool phone chat and Jex had some bars that I think will kick us off nicely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Trying to follow the wave of new regulations and wins and losses is exhausting. And it's just an absolute truth that chaos dominates the scene. And I think, like, ultimately, what we are interested in doing is finding ways of expanding access regardless of this chaos in an enduring way, meaning that we know actually what works because we have
Mhm.
examples of what works in abortion access movements globally under extreme restrictions. We are connected to that kind of like global information exchange. And so we're not interested in responding constantly to the wave of attacks. What we are very interested in is like, what can we do regardless of how strict it gets, regardless of what the courts say, regardless of laws? How do we keep each other safe? How do we navigate the legal risks? Some people can take more risks than others. Sometimes it's just about like making sure you get abortion pills to have at home in case something happens to abortion pills now. And that makes like an insane difference. I just like don't want us to focus. I don't want the conversation and our ability to have access be dependent upon these assholes who are making these extreme decisions. Like that, they are not going to inform the movement, and I refuse to allow them to have the power to do that. And I'm trying to empower other people to think in that way too. That way, we can just kind of turn it off and say, okay, what do we have to do? How do we get abortion in the hands of the people, regardless of the current legislation and chaos?
And I think that it's like really important. Like, it's great to be informed um uh, about policy because essentially like what policy is like it's a framework for criminalization primarily that will be selectively deployed against the same people that this administration is always trying to fuck with. We know that. But it's not a determinant of what is possible. And it's certainly not we know that laws aren't like the same as the right thing. They're also not the same thing as like what you can do. You know what I mean? And I think that like when we over focus on policy, we lose sight of the fact that here we are 2+ years out from Dobbs and the abortion rate has not dropped in this country. In fact, it's gone up. And that's for a couple of very clear reasons. One is the ever expanding availability of abortion pills by mail, which are safe and effective and available all over the world. And that's never going to stop. Even if they ban telemedicine, even if they roll back the REMS, like our tactics to get these meds into people's hands will pivot in response to whatever they do, but they are simply impossible to eliminate. And I think that it's really important to say that over and over and to not just have like the goal be legal change and policy change, because that sort of obfuscates the fact that access is possible regardless. You know what I mean? And I also think too that like part of the fuck SCOTUS ethos comes from the fact that like you said, Jessica, these rulings they're an insult. They are like so dehumanizing. We have every reason to be incensed. And also, we were never asking for their permission. You know what I mean? Like the idea that our autonomy was being adjudicated like by this bench full of people, like no, I reject the premise. I was born free and autonomous and in charge of my body, and that's it. It's not, this isn't a legal debate, you know?
Yeah, no, I love that. We don't need a law to tell us that we're human beings deserving of
Yeah,
respect and dignity and
right,
bodily autonomy. So what does
right.
that look like? What does that look like in practice? Like I would love to hear about sort of the way that that operates with the work that you're doing, something that the three of us for viewers have been talking about, that our teams have been talking about, are these great sort of like tactical briefs and field guides that Shut Your Abortion puts out. You call them a spy kit, right? I'm
That's
obsessed with that.
yeah. Yeah, the spy kit. So all of these toolkits were developed primarily by Jex, like by our whole team, but they're kind of Jex's thing. And they live on our website in the tools section digitally. But we also made like a small number of physical copies that we sent one to Jess, and they're like, it comes in a
So good.
manila envelope. There are like, instead of a stamp that says secret, it's like, copy this and share widely. And yeah, I'll let Jex talk a little bit more about the contents.
Yeah, I mean, the toolkits are the backbone of our philosophy and strategy, which is that we are not gatekeeping information. We want information to be shared and spread as much as possible. And we want people to have lots of different ways of accessing that information. So whether it's sharing it online, we know that there's censorship online, so we want you to be able to copy it, to print it, to rewrite it, in any way that you can. And part of that is because we really believe that autonomous, like individually built, self-organized individuals, um, organizing within themselves in regional groups what's going to get us to where we need to be. So that
Mm,
there's not a big mass movement necessarily that can be taken down, that can be
right.
to be infiltrated, can be attacked politically. That actually, if you just have your town and you and like five of your friends actually know how to get pills, how to get them to your cousins, to your sisters, to your classmates, to your kids, and that you know how to help them take it. You know that you don't have to tell somebody if you do need to go into a hospital that you've taken them at all, that we are actually looking out for each other. And that if
Yeah.
we all just have this network of people who actually know, just know what exists, know what resources exist in your community, know what the laws are, know what power you have, who you can ask for help safely, like that is going to make a world of difference, especially when we do see criminalization happening. And a lot of the times it's just people who like didn't know what steps to
Yeah,
take. They didn't know they didn't have to out themselves about taking medication, or they
right.
didn't know
They
they
didn't know
should.
about the miscarriage and abortion hotline, which
Yeah,
is,
Right.
exactly.
like staffed by pro-choice medical professionals who will let people know whether or not what they're experiencing is within the scope of normal, or if it's something that maybe they need to be seen by a provider. And like Jex just said, can like brief people on what they do and don't need to say if they end up in an emergency room or whatever. Um,
Like, yeah, we don't want people's first step necessarily to be just like sign up for the Planned Parenthood affiliate. We want people to know
Mm,
first off, like, how do I get an abortion? How do my friends get
yeah,
an abortion? And then, like, if they're excited enough, then they can start organizing. Then they can start putting up posters around town,
right.
distributing pamphlets of information. But ultimately, like, we know we can't rely on these institutions. We know we can't rely on politics. So how do we do this on our own? And we know that's what succeeds. And so that's what we are trying to do. So these toolkits are a way for us to get critical information. That's not just like what's the abortion landscape and
mhm.
how to map that out in your own communities, but how to like talk to your neighbors under a repressive um uh under oppressive speech, so in places where it might feel scary to do that. How do you do that safely? How do you build that network of care? Um, these are things that every single person can do on their own and will literally change people's lives.
That's amazing. And I feel like you all are really answering like a call. The question I get asked most often is, what do I do? How do I help? I want to do more. I want to be involved. People want to do more than just donate or sign up for alerts, right? Or call their representatives. They want to be more active, but don't necessarily know a good place to start. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about HIT and about your briefs. I feel like it's so comprehensive, but it is also accessible. It feels like something that anyone can pick up and look at and understand and get and move forward. Have you had like a really good reaction to it? Obviously, I'm going to put links to it in the post when I send it out. But for folks who are watching, how can they get it? What can they do to sort of like spread the word? What is their call to action on that?
Yeah, so as Amelia said before, if you go to the Shout Your Abortion website, you can go under tools, and the tools section has links to posters, to handouts like zines people can share. And then under the Get Involved section, they can sign up to get emails and updates from us, but also that's where they can find all the field guides and tactical briefs. And we're continuously adding to them. Um, and so we hope that people do download them, do share them, do print them. Again, like whatever seems the most, we specifically built it to people's interests so that they can choose like,
Mm,
oh, I'm really curious about this. But we've also kind of led people to where to start. Like if you don't know the current abortion landscape or in your state, like start there,
right.
period. Number one thing you can do. And then you can go from there, kind of organizing. Or if you don't know anything about abortion pills, most people don't even know that abortion pills exist. And it's
Yeah.
wild when we're out there tabling. People are like, "Oh, is this real?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is real. Please
Wow.
learn about them, know that they exist, know how to get them, so that people aren't calling us in a panic, thinking they need to, drive like hundreds and hundreds of miles or fly out of state to get care when they're, 6 weeks pregnant, where they could just get pills at their house and have them understand what the risks are too. If you don't want to talk about it, and depending on where you're living and
Yeah.
things like that. But we can beat the system, like
Mm,
hands down. We are beating the system, and we just need to make sure everybody knows like we are not powerless and they have not taken this from us.
Yeah,
huh.
absolutely.
Did you want to add
I was
something?
just gonna,
Sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, you know, as Jex is describing, like, our approach is this decentralized, like, creating these modular tools that people can use and take from and sort of adapt to their own skills, level of risk tolerance, interests,
Mm,
like, and most importantly, I think, like, what are the needs of their community? Because, like, obviously, it's like your newsletter makes it so clear that, like, we're in this like free fall, like, policy wise, and in terms of like clinics opening and closing, in terms of like the regulation of meds, like, in terms of, various grassroots organizations sort of like coming in and out of being more active in any given
mm,
place. And so, like, that's one of the reasons why, like, a sort of top down traditional national organizing strategy that
mm,
has this sort of like monolithic set of like, now we do this, is just like not prepared to meet this moment. But as Jex is saying, like, we being like people on the ground that are down to look around in their community, do a landscape assessment of some kind where they're like, okay, who's out here? What are they doing? What is needed? And like, what are my skills? Slash, how much time do I have? Slash, like, what am I interested in doing? And Jex and I talk a lot about how, like, you know, uh, you don't even necessarily need to have a first step in mind that's like, I'm going to go do this project or do this
yeah.
action. Or like, even if you just get a group together of 5 people and decide to meet once a month, some stuff will start to happen. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, there's no replacement for that, especially under like a descent into fascist regime where like online organizing is compromised. And, we are in this free fall where stuff changes so quickly. Like, people need to be in community, meeting their neighbors, meeting like minded people, building relationships, and like learning how to help ourselves and each other in the absence of failed institutions. And
Absolutely.
that's not to say we don't need clinics, and that's not to say like that we ride hard for clinics, especially independent abortion providers who provide the majority of abortions actually in this country and the vast majority of care later in pregnancy. If you're interested in learning more about indie clinics, Abortion Care Network is a great resource to check out. They're the national organization that supports and represents indies, and I'm the co-chair of the board of directors. They have a rolling fundraising campaign called Keep Our Clinics that is sort of just like a place to donate to help save the most at-risk indies. And those indies are pretty much like they are the ones that are doing the most necessary later care in hostile places, both politically and culturally. Like they're really the backbone of the most difficult shit, and they're severely
Mm.
under-resourced because they're like indie anything else. They're like an indie bookstore or whatever. Like they don't have the name recognition or sort of like the centralized support that like a Planned Parenthood does.
Mhm.
So I just always have to shout that out. And because we're talking about pills so much, I want to shout out clinics because we really see this as like an ecosystem where we need everything. We need funds and clinics and pills, and there are places to plug in for everybody. And we're just hoping to give people places to start.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I want to make sure that we hit on, which is, as we descend and are in fascism, the online censorship, Shout Your Abortion started online, started as this hashtag, this online movement. How are you all thinking about your work, assuming that that continues to happen? Like, what kind of attacks have you seen on your own work, on your own speech, and how are you talking to other activists and sort of advising people for how to prepare for if that gets even worse? I know it's something that like we're thinking about a lot, and we're thinking about, okay, like,
Mm-hmm.
are we creating like a snail mailing list? Are we going to
Yeah,
start holding
totally.
more in-person events, and not just like if information is censored, but if it's criminalized, if it no longer
Yeah,
becomes safe to share this
right.
information,
Yeah.
right?
What is free speech
What is
these
free speech
days, you
anyway?
know? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I've bought like three different printers in the last 2 years just to like
Can
increase my
confirm.
capacity. Yeah, because I do think, and it's something that's come up across lots of different movement spaces I've been working in, is this question of how we safely communicate. And
Mm.
there's obviously been a huge attack and censorship on abortion information on socials, and I think that's only going to increase and get worse, which is one reason why we're like screaming it right now, like share information
Mhm.
Yeah.
about it before
Yeah.
that major form of communication is potentially compromised. But I do think that getting together again with like for real, getting together with people one on one, like if it's just like a group of 5 people and then they tell 3 other people and they get it, like the web of care is gonna happen. And there's
Yeah.
independent booksellers and printers right now that are like tapping into mailing lists so that we can send each other pamphlets of material that they will print and then put in their town So
Mm.
these networks are actually happening. And I think that's one thing that Plan C, who provides information about how to access abortion pills, has been really good at doing, is because they have these stickers with QR codes that I see everywhere. Like
I think that they've distributed 5 million at this point.
it's
Wow.
Yeah.
so impressive. And people put them
Yeah.
in bathroom stalls. They put them at rest stops. And if you just scan it, it will take them to information about abortion medication. And that is like, we have to start thinking like it's the 90s again, which I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we need to start building that strength now before we're surprised by it, before we're like, oh no, we do need to figure out how to get a printer or talk to somebody safely.
Right.
Like, those networks need to happen now.
Yeah. And not like build all of our communication capacity around these like whimsical sociopaths in Silicon Valley that are clearly just like,
Yeah.
do not have they certainly don't have a moral center. And I think that like to your question, Jessica, about like, um, what has happened, like our account has been fucked with over the last few years pretty much constantly. And it's like very erratic. It's very
Mm.
like, it's often stuff about pills, but it's like, it's something that doesn't make sense in a way that I feel the same way I feel about laws, which is like,
Mm,
let's not act like this shit is fair. Like, they're just going to fuck with you if they want to, and then like find some way to substantiate it to themselves that they don't really have to like prove to anybody or what. It doesn't have to like
yeah,
pass muster in any kind of way, especially if we're talking about like Meta or whatever. And like
yeah,
our shit has been like, we've thankfully developed relationships with some people at Meta that like really believe in the work we do and have helped us get our accounts restored or posts restored or whatever. But we're not banking on that being the we don't know what will happen. And like, to my point, we're not going to constrain, like, we're going to keep doing the right thing and adjust tactics as necessary, like, but we're not going to preemptively comply um,
right.
with any of this shit, you know? Especially because they move the goalposts nonstop. Like, whether we're talking about, is your did you have a miscarriage or did you improperly dispose of a fetus? Or we're talking about like a social media post and what is considered protected speech. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's like another reason why it's just like feels limiting to focus on interpretations of
Mhm.
guidelines, whether they're laws or social media community policies or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like we need to be doing this proactively too, right? Like something that you said at the top about like not like responding to attacks, not responding to these terrible decisions, but actively building something, which we're like
Yes.
we already need
Yeah.
it. And it's and a lot of it's already there. As you said, there's, amazing community work being done. We already need it, but I worry so much about the disinformation, the lack of information, this idea
Yeah.
that like most people don't know that abortion pills exist, or that some people think, emergency contraception and abortion pills are the same, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much misinformation and disinformation, and we're about to enter this era of like renewed abstinence only education,
Yeah.
clinics being stripped away, comprehensive sex education being stripped away. And so, how are we going to get this information out to young people,
Hmm.
especially who don't have the same resources, um,
Yeah.
that we did?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're going to be asking ourselves that question in a pretty open-ended way, like
Yeah,
forever, probably. And I think it's just going to be a constant sort of like dynamic tactical evolution. Um, and I also think it's like important to remember that like access was so fucked for so many people in this country before Roe fell, as you know, and have talked about extensively. Like, that's why there is a network of abortion funds and like, grassroots supporters of access that was like existed before Dobbs fell and was like ready to spring into action and expand the capacity to help more and
mhm,
more people. But like now, what we need is more helpers, especially since, like Jack said, like the baseline, the best way that you can contribute to abortion access right now is to know how to have an abortion and to make yourself a resource for that information. Like, full stop, that
yep,
alone. And take that the next step. Say you start a crew and 5 of you get together and you do advanced provision. So you go get some pills from any of the providers that are listed on the Plan C website, which like your options will differ based on where you live. And your little pod just has access to a set of pills. You share, like, you can communicate about this on Signal. We always want to, like, of course, encourage people to be using encrypted platforms and not taking unnecessary risks technologically as much as possible. So you're not like having a
yep,
Facebook message thread that's like, who's got the plug or whatever. But, imagine how much that one little pod of 5 people that all knows that somebody has a set of pills. Like, if all of the people close to each of those individuals knows that as well in a DL kind of way. And again,
mm,
I don't want to like encourage loose lips. I think it's really, really important to be actively interrogating your relation, like your level of trust with any given person. And I don't
mhm,
want to minimize that. But like, if you have 5 people that you really trust, and each of those people have 5 people that they really trust, like imagine if 100 people that watch this live start a pod and get a set of pills. How many abortions can we provide for ourselves in our communities in the next few years? And there's no time like the present to like just also, if it's $150 for pills, that's like easier for 5 people, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
start a
No,
pod, start a
love
pill
that.
pod.
And we know it works, right? Like that's why they're coming
Yeah.
after. Like I want to talk for a minute about sort of like the chilling effect and the way that
Yes.
prosecutors and AGs and legislators are targeting helpers so explicitly, right?
Yes.
It's scary and it creates this incredible chilling effect, but it's also because they know that it works. They know that it's
Yes.
working.
Yes.
And that's why they're doing it. So how are you all thinking about doing that work, being proactive about it, being explicit, but also, as you said, like being realistic about the challenges we, are
Yes.
seeing in Texas, eight more people just arrested,
Yeah.
by Ken Paxton. And so how do we navigate all that?
So, I mean, we think that there are different ways to talk about this. At the top level, like absolute defiance is the whole mood. And so like when the leak happened, SYA made a t-shirt that says, "I will aid and abet abortion." And in the aftermath of that decision, in the few months around Dobbs, we sold tens of thousands of these shirts. And that's not just a slogan, it's not just a message tee, it's a fucking promise. And I believe that the people that are out there wearing that shirt are making good on it and finding ways to commit to helping facilitate other people's care. And I think it's so important that like we send the message to them. Like in the same way, that language aid and abet was taken from SB8, which was the first huge effort that they made to make us terrified to help each other. And it's so important that we say, it's not fucking happening. We will not abandon each other. We will not comply. You will never stop us. Behind each one of us is 10 more of us. And it's like they simply can't win. When people are like, what gives you hope? Literally, their victory is impossible. You can't stop abortion from happening, but it is on us to help each other like access abortion. And we're going to have to get good and sneaky and like adapt, but we're going to, like, we just are,
And
Yeah.
Amelia, to step in there really quickly, like about this fear and it's true. There's a fear, and they are crashing down on some people. But if we all start to do it, like they're never going to get us all. And we know that actions actually can influence policy. Like we know because everybody was smoking weed, all of a sudden it was like it was like these laws are pointless. Like everyone's doing it, and that's what we've saw that also happen in other countries. Like we can do that. And of course, there are measures that people should take if you're more at risk of legal criminalization. You might not want to be the person that orders the pills, but you can still tell someone that they exist, And that's like how we take care of each other. That's how we build the network. And there's no way they're going to catch us all. And in the meantime, we're going to be having thousands and thousands and thousands of abortions.
I love that.
It's like the real Slim Shady video.
Well, and it's also like I feel like the incredible work that sort of started Shut Your Abortion, which was destigmatizing having an abortion. It feels like now it's about destigmatizing helping people get abortions, because so much of the cultural work that Republicans and conservatives are doing right now around abortion is making abortion pills seem shady and scary, calling providers, calling abortion funds drug traffickers, right? Like they're trying to make it seem as nefarious and dark as possible. And we have an opportunity to bring it to light and be much more open. And they can't make all of us seem like shady, grim drug traffickers.
No. That's exactly right. That's the
Just
plan.
absolutely,
That's the whole plan.
absolutely nuts. Let's talk a little bit about abortion pills and just there's so much going on with them. There's the attacks are outrageous. Is there anything specific that you are more worried about attack wise than others? Like, what are you keeping a close eye on? Um, were you thinking about what they're up to next with attacking pills and telehealth and helpers?
Mhm. I mean, I think, like, I try to not spend too much time, like, tripping about specifics because I do just think that,
Mm,
like, that takes a ton of time and energy, and I think it's important to have, like, some semblance of a roadmap in mind, but to not spend all your time planning on, like, some potentiality that, like, we just
mm,
have no idea. Like, I do think, like, obviously, like, the Kazmarek case is I don't even totally know how to interpret the news from, I think, last week.
mm,
Necessarily, I haven't had a chance to, like, tap in with my smart lawyer friends about it, but, the idea that they'll roll back the REMS and it will
yeah.
effectively ban telemedicine, I think is like an obvious, like, big chunk of access that would be hugely threatened by such a
Yeah.
decision. That I think is top of mind. Like, obviously, we know and love a lot of telemed providers, and we know that those folks are doing a whole lot of really good work. And we also know that um, that's not the only path to abortion pills. Like, there are
Mm,
community networks, there are online retailers that are selling safe, effective products at reasonable prices on quick timelines. And so, again, we don't want to get so focused on legality that we, like, lose
mm,
the full picture of access. Um, and,
Yeah,
especially miso only abortion, I think is a good thing to
mm,
touch on too, Jex, if you.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think for me, the biggest fear is actually that it's confusing for people that they don't know that they think like they're taking this away, so therefore we can't get abortion pills through the mail when we
Yeah.
can. Um, and
Yeah.
that actually, the chilling effect is like so powerful. So that's a big fear. But also, I'm reminding people every day that even if they take mifepristone away, like we're very lucky that we have that. Most places around the world only use misoprostol, and that is like the powerful drug. Like that's the one you need to have
mm,
an abortion. So we can continue to have abortions with misoprostol, regardless of the laws. And that's extremely easy to get. It's super cheap and affordable. You can get it by going to other countries. You can get it online, obviously. And so I just
mhm.
want to remind people that like we still got it under control. Like we have it. We're going to keep doing it. It doesn't actually matter. Like these laws will make things annoying, but only as much as we like let them. And the stronger
Yeah.
our networks and local care networks are, the less that these will matter and impact us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna just in case your viewers don't know, which I bet that most people do, but like Jex was saying, mifepristone is the first drug in a 2 medication regimen that pretty much solely exists in the United States.
Mm,
Everywhere else in the world, the protocol includes only the second drug, which is misoprostol. And it's really interesting that, like, all of these battles, like, legally are happening over Miffy when, like Jex said, like, miso is the real MVP. Miso is the drug that
yeah.
makes you cramp out whatever is in your uterus and causes the abortion to occur. Mifepristone is much easier to target because it's like only like misoprostol has a ton of other uses, and it's like pretty much impossible to
Yeah.
eliminate from the FDA, from the scope of meds, because it like started as an ulcer medication. It's super cheap. It's just like very
Yeah.
widely available all over the global market. And Miffy is much more is like easy to target because it's only used for reproductive health care, primarily abortion, although it has other uses
Right.
in birth and miscarriage management, etc. But yeah, I think that it's like really important to remember that even when we see headlines that are like, they're targeting the abortion pill, even if the FDA took away both abortion pills, they'd still be coming into the
Yeah.
country. They'd still be available via online pharmacies, via community networks. And beyond that, these lawsuits are currently only focused on mifepristone, which like all over the world is almost considered like a pre-treatment as opposed to the actual abortion. It like makes things go more quickly. It might make things less painful, but it's kind of like a Rolls Royce like US abortion like thing that is like totally not necessary. And abortions with miso only are equally as effective. So it's like very important. Like our friends in Poland, a country that has had completely illegal abortion for decades, our friends are just like, why are you so obsessed with mifepristone? Like, it's really funny.
I love that. It makes me think about as you're talking, do we sort of like break through the fear there, right? Like when there's so much overwhelm, when there are so many court cases, headlines, newsletters that are laying out like all of these policy attacks, laying out all of the various sort of like detailed, nuanced things that Republicans are doing. How do we, in our own communities, sort of break through that fear, break through that overwhelm to remind each other that we can still take care of each other, right?
Yeah, when I talk about a lot of these, I always start at the top. Like, first off, we got this. We know the answer. Like, we have all of these solutions and resources available to us. So, like, I'm always like, let's start at the top with that and let's ground ourselves in that. And then let's talk about why this is like fucked. Let's talk about what they're actually trying to get to. And like just making sure that we are actually contextualizing it in a way that is reflective of reality and reflective of the truth, not just the reality on at the Capitol or whoever or wherever people are legislating. Like we are saying, like, um, of course these laws are fucked, and they're you can think about all of the insidious ways that they're like manifesting and control over bodies and so on and so forth. And that's important to talk about and stay on top of. But ultimately, we have to just reclaim that back and say,
Yeah.
regardless of what happens, we have this, we have access, we have options. That abortion medication, for example, can be obtained, is effective, even if you have miso, even if you're past 12 weeks. Like you can safely terminate a pregnancy beyond what the FDA says that is the legal limit. And there are people that will help you do that. And so we can't lose hope. We have to stay focused on reality. The reality is we actually got this under control.
But for folks who want to, first of all, take action, and I'm going to link to all of your amazing work and the tactical briefs, but like on a broader level, right? If you have advice for people about how to build trust within their community, I think, again, because of the fear, because of the overwhelm, because of this chilling effect that we're seeing, you guys think about community and trust a lot. One of the ways that you started, right, we're like sharing these abortion stories and gaining people's trust so that they felt safe talking about their abortions. What are some ways that we can do that? Or do you have any advice for people who sort of like don't know how to get started with that?
Yeah, so one of the tactical briefs that we have is actually called a guide to finding your people. And that is really just to say, like, if you don't have friends that you trust about talking about this, or you feel really isolated, you just don't know where to start. There's a guide that's just like, here's how you actually start to network with people. And sometimes that is not about abortion. Sometimes that's just like, hey, everybody in my apartment building, do you want to get together and just like make dinner together some night, or like meet outside on the lawn and barbecue or something like that? And then you'll start to find people. You'll start to find people you align with. Talking, obviously, if you are in a space where you feel comfortable talking about your abortion story, it's incredible to see the community come out and say, like, oh, I identify with that. But there's like, it doesn't have to be rooted in abortion access. You can start with clubs that you're already part of, like pool clubs. I know people who play pool or play cards on Friday nights. Like, be like, oh man, this is really bothering me. I've been really thinking about abortion access, and like, you'd be surprised at how many people. Or like another entry point, like body autonomy, trans issues, like these kinds of like freedom of speech. Like there are all these access points. And sometimes we just have to experiment with what works in the people that we surround ourselves with, or put up like a flyer that's like, I want to talk about abortion. And you would be shocked even if 3 people come. I mean, every organization that I've ever been part of started with like 3 people.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. So But we have tons of ideas on that guide, a guide to finding your people, and really encourage people to take a look at that.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I am irritated because I meant to have it here with me so I could like show it, but it's really terrific. I want to make sure that people get a chance to ask questions. So if folks have any and you want to start throwing them in the chat, feel free. Agnes is not here today to sift through, so just be patient with us if we are taking a second to get to them. I did want to ask you all something I'm thinking about a lot in addition to, right, like abortion pills and advanced provision and getting these pills in hand, is to deal with disposal of remains, disposal of abortions, disposal of miscarriages. We're seeing more and more people get arrested, not on abortion charges, not on, for ending their pregnancy, not for miscarriage, but for the way that they dispose of pregnancy remains, right? And this seems to be sort of like Republicans' roundabout way to criminalize and to target people. Do you think that there's any good advice or resources that you could point folks to as folks are trying to become resources of information, collecting as many, good bits of advice as they can? How are you all thinking about it? I just wanted to throw it out there.
I will say so a lot of what we know about how people dispose of fetal tissue remains comes from the global network of people who have been
Mm,
doing this for decades and decades. But I think the thing that I've been seeing about people who have been criminalized are, number one, that they typically weren't aware that they were going to have a fetus at the size that it was. They just
mm,
were. It was unexpected,
mm,
and they didn't know who to call when that happened. So they didn't know who they could ask for help. They weren't prepared, and they also weren't aware of the risks. So I think so much of this can start with just, again, education. People
yeah.
knowing like like at what like how many weeks they are, what type of medication they should, like what protocol they should take, or if they do plan to travel, what risks they're willing to take and prepare, and then who to call. And I know that M&A hotline is one of the hotlines that provides you with tons of help and advice, and they can also help you figure that out in advance. So if someone's ever unsure, they should ask. The other thing about fetal tissue laws is that they're not very clear. They're very like there's not really a true guidelines of what you should do and what should happen. It's often a reaction of like of social fear, anxiety, or like someone finds something that they don't know what to
Yeah.
do with, or a medical professional's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So again, like, how do we not act like cops to each other? How do we actually
Hmm.
take this in stride and understand people are trying to navigate a very stressful situation in an extremely uncharted territory under a police state? So
Yeah.
again, like, let's make sure that we are asking the right questions. Information is out there about this, so like, let's make sure that people are prepared and they know not to do things like talk about it on social media, like the same thing that you would do in any time you're like, I'm not sure about where I'm landing in this action legally.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you have something else to share?
Yeah, I first of all, I just really love that you asked this, Jessica. I think that it's crucial to like find ways to have this conversation because as you said, this is like the front line of criminalization. And like Jex is saying, like these laws are totally flexible and like whether something is a miscarriage or an abortion, it's all subjectively defined by like
Hmm.
the cop, the doctor, the prosecutor, like, and so ultimately, I think that the best that we can do is not to like hyper focus on what the laws are, but is like Jack said, be prepared for your abortion experience and make a plan that includes as few people as possible, as much discretion as possible, and like a plan for contacting super trusted resources like the M&A hotline,
Hmm.
and also like a plan for what you might say. um Jex mentioned that like a lot of folks are just like not prepared for having to dispose of fetal tissue, and I Need an A has a page on their site that is like abortion with pills after 12 weeks, and it has
Mm,
this like guide that basically shows the size of what a fetus will be as it has candy examples, so it's like
hmm.
fun size, like it's
Yeah.
it's a very sort of like accessible, legible guide to just sort of wrap your mind around what something might, what it will be like. And yeah, I think that that's like the most important, that's like the best tips that we can give in this format.
Yeah.
And I would say also shout out to abortion doulas. It's like a growing
Yeah.
field of work. And if you are someone that's having an abortion and you ask around, you could call even the M&A hotline and they will connect you. And you can get support from people who know how to prepare you for this.
Mhm.
That's great. That's really like exactly what I needed. As you were talking, I was thinking about how much like an anti-abortion activist would love listening to this conversation and saying, "Oh, look, right, like they're talking about how to dispose." Like they have become fully obsessed with disposal of miscarriage and abortion remains because they know that it like strikes something in people. I call it the ick factor, right? Like they know that cops and prosecutors who are mostly male don't have a lot of understanding or experience with what pregnancy loss looks like. And so they're sort of like taking advantage of that. And it just made me think like, and I'll leave it after that. I know that we're going late, but how do you all think about interlopers and like anti-abortion activists coming on the scene and trying to infiltrate your communities, right? Like not to be like a negative Nancy, but like how do you think about like ways to protect yourself, protect the activism, other than, you know, Signal and like all the things that we've been talking about?
So
Go ahead.
I'm excited to share, Jessica, and I'm sure you know this in all of your subscribers, but anti-abortion people need abortions all the time, and there is something to be said about
Yeah.
kind of getting in and sharing this information that actually has this amazing effect of actually teaching people how to do this and get the care they need, even if they don't think they're the kind of person who would need it at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
What do you-
I no, I love that. Every time like there's
Love.
something on Fox News where they're just like anti-abortion terrorists shout your abortion, put a thing somewhere that said you can get abortion pills even where abortion is illegal. And it's like, thank you. Thank you for
Thanks.
spreading that gospel to the Fox News viewership because like Jack said, like
Yeah.
any abortion provider will tell you that they provide abortions all day long for people who identify as pro-life. And like Jack said, we're doing this for those people too. Absolutely. So I think that like, you know, we wouldn't say anything here that we wouldn't say to like we know that we're talking to a bunch of strangers right now, 70
Right.
of them. Hello, maybe some of you are friends. But like we're talking about the fact that abortion access is happening, what it looks like, you know, like Jack said, like other models globally, like the fact that fetal tissue disposal does happen and that, you know, when people have abortions after 12 weeks, there will be a fetus. Like these are just facts. These are just sort of facts of reality that we are stating for the public shamelessly and without sort of some premise of like obfuscation.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like you said, it's like for a long time the anti-abortion movement like very they really did exploit sort of like this ick factor, like you said, about sort of people wanting to act like uh just being afraid of even the fact that a fetus resembles a baby.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think that we need to be able to own what this experience of pregnancy loss, of abortion, like all the things that it is. And like that is the best way to prepare people. And like the fact that you know, like none of that has any bearing on like it's okay to go through an experience that's like, whew, That was kind of rough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and people who have been pregnant know that. Like, people who get periods know that. Like, our bodies do some wild shit, and we know that. And like you said, like, these men that are showing up at the scene of a miscarriage, like Brittany Watts is an example of a person who was in and out of a hospital over the course of a few days, getting medical care, eventually went home, had a miscarriage at home, and then went back to the hospital to receive more follow-up care, told them that she had had a miscarriage. And then the cops went to her house and found a fetus, like, outside in the yard. And the cops straight up said, I'm not or the prosecutor, like, this isn't about the fact, like, whether or not she took pills. It's about, like, bad vibes. It's about the fact that I'm offended by the fact that she left this fetus in a bucket. Like, that's how fucking arbitrary and just socially produced and malleable all of this stuff is. And I think that's why we gotta, like, reclaim the vibe, man. Like, bodies are wild. We bleed. We pass fetal tissue. We are also able to make choices and, you know, navigate tricky situations and stay safe doing it. But we got to talk about what the reality really looks like.
I love that. We have gone super late, and so I'm gonna let folks go in a second. But for people who want to get more involved, we're gonna send them to your website. What else can folks do? What's your big, grand, smart, beautiful, wise advice for the people who are watching and want to get involved and want to help and want to do something?
From my perspective, I would encourage everybody who's watching to tell at least two people this week about abortion pills through the mail, or about the resource youalwayshaveoptions.com, which is like a completely comprehensive, amazing one-stop shop of like every tool you might need if you're seeking abortion care. Think of two people that you don't maybe haven't talked to about this. Just make a plan to tell them. That is super important. And then, of course, visit our website. You can sign up to find out, like, to get tools to your inbox about ways you can continue to be involved. But plan on looking at the toolkits. Look at the toolkits, share the toolkits, print them off. Even just one of them. Make it small and obtainable. Tell two people about these resources and go look at a toolkit. Like, make that your week's plan.
Yeah, I love that plan. I think that, yeah, just continuing to frame this as like, we're not going to be saved by some big policy solution, or like, even if our rights were restored, they were incredibly limited under Roe versus Wade. Access was constrained under Roe versus Wade. And so, like, no big policy solution, no politician, no election is going to, like, reverse this bad situation. What is going to reverse this bad situation is a critical mass of us making small, brave decisions every single day. And that's like how we build the better world. It's a million little things, and you can do 5 of them, or 1 of them, or 10 of them. You can build a crew of people who are interested in talking about what those things might be. And I think that, like, sometimes the news is just it's like we get waterboarded by this shit, and it makes us feel helpless, and it makes the solutions feel so out of reach. And I think we really just want to make people hear that, like, you know, like, people do have the power. Like, they have every structural edge on us, and they can't fucking stop us. They can't stop us from doing the thing, you know? But we need more folks to get in the ring. And we're here to try and help prime you to do that. And we believe, like, wholeheartedly, 1000%, that we are going to win. And I think that, like, if you take a step into the work, you'll start to believe that too.
I cannot think of a better place to end. Thank you both so much. That was awesome. So incredibly helpful and inspiring. Thank you to everyone who joined. I will make sure that all of the links and the briefs and the tools that we talked about will be linked in this post. Send it around to some people, start some conversations. But really, thank you to Shout Your Abortion for all of your incredible work.
Thank you.
Back at you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for having us. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we just really appreciate you sharing your platform with us.
Anytime. We should do it again soon.
Next time, I'll have a Substack.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.